As you can see, it's a panel discussion where we want to look forward and see how we can support ASEAN member states and their Med services especially in achieving early warnings for all through the support that regional organizations can provide, that global organizations can provide, so that early warnings for all is achieved in all these countries. And let me introduce the panelists first. Thank you very much for agreeing to be panelists today. So on my right, you already heard Ms. Thelma Cinco, and especially thanks to her because she agreed last minute to be a panelist, and she's a very important person for us in WMO because, as I mentioned already, she's not only the chief of climatology and agrometology at Pagasa, but also the working group services chair of our regional association 5. Then to her right, we have Dr. Vatana Kanbua. He's the director of the Meteorological Development Division at the Thai Meteorological Department since 2022. And prior to this role, he was the director of the Marine Meteorological Center at TMD. And he is the national focal point for National Marine Services. And he also serves on the International Scientific Steering Committee of the Asia-Pacific Typhoon Collaborative Research Center under the ESCAP WMO Typhoon Committee that was already mentioned. Then to his right, we have Mr. Sadhu Sukruf Yanotama. He's Disaster Monitoring and Analysis Officer at the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Management, the AHA Center. And he has extensive experience in spatial data analysis and management, disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, agriculture, and water resources. Then to his right, we have Catherine. So you already heard a lot about her. From her and about her. So she is the Disaster Resilience Lead at FAO, and she started her career in the Pacific, working on climate change and nutrition programming with the University of the South Pacific in Fiji, with World Fish in the Solomon Islands, and later with UNDP's multi-country office in Samoa. And at present, she fosters the growth of the disaster resilience portfolio there, and especially she's involved in anticipatory action in the Asia-Pacific region. Then to her right, our last panelist, give me 1 second, is Mr. Raihanul Haq Khan. He's one of the program leads at the Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System, RIMES, and there he supports the Hydromet research and development team in designing and delivering tailor-made climate services. And he has worked a lot as technical advisor to the government of Bangladesh for flood forecasting and the warning center of the Bangladesh Water Development Board and the Bangladesh Meteorological Department. Thank you so much. Maybe I can turn to Thelma first. Because I mentioned that you are also the working group chair. So I wanted to ask you, what role do you see for WMO regions or region RE2, RE5, and their working mechanisms when supporting the ASEAN member states in strengthening their early warning systems?
Thank you, Joachim, for the question. And this morning we've seen that the ASEAN member countries were seeking support on how we can link together. On the WMO being the chair of the services, we could see that the activities along RA2 and RA5 in the operating plans in implementing the multi-hazard early warning systems can revisit those, how can we complement our activities, and trainings can be done with this mechanism for Region 2 and Region 5. We have done that previous year in Japan for Region 2, so maybe perhaps in the ASEAN countries, we can do such mechanism for Region 2 and Region 5 to work together towards the implementation of early warning for all for the ASEAN member countries, both for the multi-hazard early warning system as well as for the climate services.
Thank you so much. And I think you highlight something that came up already during the State of the Climate discussion, that our WMO regions RA2 and RA5, ASEAN is split between these two. So we need to foster more collaboration between these groups and maybe integrating that into our operating plan and maybe have sub-regional activities there could be one solution. Please, if you want to add something.
Yes. Revisiting again our operating plan, because we already have this operating plan for 2024 to 2027. So revisiting that with the two regions, then we could collaborate as well.
Thank you so much. Maybe I can turn to Dr. Watana Kanbua. So Thailand hasn't been a speaker yet, so I want to start with a more general question maybe about your experiences in establishing early warning systems in Thailand, and maybe sharing some success stories, what works well or what could be improved from your perspective. Over to you. Thank you.
Let's say I'm modeler. I'm not the expert about the early warning system. Actually, in my experience, 2004, I joined to establish the National Disaster Warning Center. At that time, it's the tsunami hit the Indian Ocean. And I in the team of the Dr. Smith Thamasaro. He is the ex-DG of Thailand. At that time, I look after about the ICT, subcommittee about ICT with the early warning system, about the radio tower to broadcast the people to know when the tsunami will come. And I write down the program about the name of SIP post model is free, you can download. You can estimate about the wave from source, you can drag on the screen and the wave will be like a move from the source to the coastline. And we have the time to warning the people in everywhere along the coast of the Indian Ocean also. And right now I be here, I think I would like to add about the accuracy of the model. Because I'm modeler about the weather model and ocean model, storm surge model, I did it, I implemented it from the web model and the PMO, like a Princeton Ocean model. And right now we have the sort we appreciate to help country. Thailand, we have, Japan have the JICA. In Thailand, we have a TICA. We try to help the border country, like Myanmar, like Laos, Cambodia. If you write down the official letter to TICA, TICA will ask me, you have the resources person to do about the ocean wave model. I said, I have it. And I invite the people from neighbor country. I think this is we share the data and we transfer knowledge. This is my experience about the early warning.
Thank you so much. This is a great example, having these memoranda of understandings with neighboring country, and because Thailand is quite advanced, has advanced a lot over the last years, and sharing that knowledge, these successes with your neighbors, I think that's exactly where we want to go here. So may I turn to Mr. Yanotama. So we just heard from 2 member states, and you are an ASEAN center, so so a coordinating body linked to the Secretariat supporting the member states. Could you tell us a little bit more about the AHA Center and how you support countries in the region?
Yeah, thank you. So, good morning. With regards to your question, what is the AHA Center? Basically, the AHA Center is an intergovernmental agency to facilitate cooperation among the ASEAN member states with other organizations such as UN agencies, ICRC, FRC, and so on. And the AHA Center has 4 core functions. The first one is coordination. The second one is disaster information management. The third one is the resource management. And the last one is knowledge and outreach. And I think that's it. I hope it answers your question.
And from this kind of bird eye view that you have, what in your view, and also based on the recent assessment that you did about early warning systems in ASEAN member states, what do you think works well, and where can things be improved when you think of these four pillars, and maybe you can reference a little bit this recent assessment?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. So first of all, I would like to reiterate that the AHA Center is not disseminating early warning. We are one of the users, which is we harvesting the early warning information, which is coming from the early warning providers. For example, coming from BMKG, coming from Pagasa, Thailand Meteorological Department, and so on and so on. And after we receive this warning, we coordinate with our member states, with the National Disaster Management Organization in the 10 ASEAN member states. I just want to put the example of the current tropical cyclone Yagi, because Yagi already passed the Philippines and now going toward west direction, and according to the current forecast, it will go to Vietnam and then go to Laos and then dissipate it. And after receiving this information, we disseminate this information to our governing board of the AHA Center, which is our ACDM, the ASEAN Committee on Disaster Management, through our disaster information product. So we coordinate with VDDMA Vietnam, we coordinate also with the NDMO Laos PDR to see whether there is any preparedness measure that can be taken. And with regards to what goes well during the early warning, actually there is several cases. It's also as one of our discussion in our group, and what is the success or minimum requirement of the success when we see the early warning. Actually, when we see the impact itself, I will put the example of the maybe tropical cyclone Mocha, which is also presented in the day 1. So according to the data, we see that this tropical cyclone, the Mocha, which is developed in Bay of Bengal, have a same strength with tropical cyclone Nargis. And we see the impact of the Nargis actually can reach, I think, more than 10,000 people are dead. But because of this early warning, from the regional stakeholders as well as the national authorities also can take the preparedness measure. And that is why the number of casualties is actually less compared to the previous tropical cyclone. And I think that's what good with the early warning, as well as how we communicate after we receive the early warning, we coordinate with stakeholders and so on and so on. And I think what needs to be improved, I think according to the end-to-end assessment, which is conducted by ASEAN, we see there is some gaps, because I think during the presentation of our colleague from ASEAN Secretariat, we have the Committee on Science and Technology, which is they work with the meteorological agencies, geophysical agencies, so basically the early warning providers. And we also have the users, the ASEAN Committee on Disaster Management, which is, for example, we have the AHA Center, we have the NDMOs, who actually implement or to do after we receive this early warning. So in some cases, it's worked well, but in some cases, there is also something that can be improved. How to bridge the science, how to bridge this early warning to the decision-making process, to the stakeholders, so we can save lives. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think you highlighted some important points, that you amplify the national early warnings that are issued, of course, by national agencies, but also that you monitor the impacts and the reduction of the impacts. So I think it came up in many group discussions that showing this success, this return on investment, yesterday we heard about that, is extremely important. And thank you also for highlighting this bridge to the users. I think this is, for all of us, the challenging part. And when the lady from the ASEAN Secretariat mentioned on the first day that there are 29 committees, I think, in the ASEAN Secretariat, this requires a lot of coordination, I think. Thank you so much. Maybe I turn to Catherine. So he just mentioned the users. So the agricultural sector is a big user, and FAO, like WMO, works with the Med Services. FAO works with the agricultural ministries and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about the role of FAO in disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation in Southeast Asia? And maybe you can also focus or explain a little bit anticipatory action and how FAO with other partners has been supporting the ASEAN Secretariat in rolling out the anticipatory action approach. Thank you.
Sure thing, big question. I think as FAO, I think we're in that unique position as I think a lot of the UN agencies have, where you've got this relationship with the ministry. So with the Ministry of Agriculture, we work very closely with them on various climate change adaptation and mitigation approaches, that long-term approaches that, to really enhance their kind of farming practices, climate smart agriculture, but also in the short term, as Joachim, you're mentioning, that anticipatory action side of what we can do to protect livelihoods ahead of a shock as well is really important. What we also encourage our counterparts to do through the Ministry of Agriculture is to think a little bit more into disaster risk management as well and lean into that area, which means we need to connect better to the meteorological services, to the ministries or NDMOs, disaster management officers, to ensure that we're all speaking the same language. Because as many of us know, when you have a drought, you have a typhoon, you have a flood, when you look at the damage and loss data, what is the main sectors that are coming up? Of course, infrastructure's there, but agriculture is close on its heels as well. So there is definitely, I think, a growing space, particularly with climate change increasing the frequency and intensity of these events. And many of the ministries I've been talking to across ASEAN have vocalized we need better mitigation practices because our agriculture sector is under fire. We are constantly rebuilding and recovering, but while we're recovering, we're also facing another shock. The classic one is, as meteorologists, you would know, and I don't want to preach to the converted, is that you would have a drought, and then closely after, you would have a flood. And it's trying to explain to people, well, once you have a drought, your ground is like concrete. And we saw that most recently actually in Afghanistan, where they had this dry period, which is unusual for an El Nino as well. It's usually more wetter there. But they had a really dry period that, solidified the ground, and then they had flash floods that came through more strongly. And that's a typical multi-hazard kind of risk that we're facing these days. So what FAO we're aiming to do is to look at strengthening agro-met systems and climate services to be able to take on this multi-faceted risk. Not only do we need to strengthen the warning systems to include, agricultural data, like for instance with drought. I was having a great conversation with the ASEAN Met Service colleagues yesterday about the need for soil moisture, but also looking at that as, being the most correct, indicators. But going through with the Ministry of Agriculture saying, okay, with this early warning information, what do you need to make better decisions? And a lot of them will say impact forecasting. I need to know how damage and losses are connecting to forecasts for me to be able to tell a story. Because when you're connecting that to farmers, if you say, oh, there's a 50% likelihood of rainfall not coming, or your combined drought index isn't going to, saying X, Y, and Z, a farmer is an expert in themselves. They know agriculture better than anyone. And they know and they can read the signs. The issue that we are seeing at the moment is those signs are becoming more skewed, are becoming more unpredictable. So how do we communicate to farmers that is also trustworthy information that they want to take on board and absorb as well? So it's a really, I think, interesting space that we're entering into at the moment, but it does require coordination with different sectors. It requires us really looking at holistic long-term and short-term approaches as we move forward. Now, one of those short-term approaches is anticipatory action, and thank you for bringing that up, Joachim. So I think ASEAN has done such an excellent job in creating the architecture for anticipatory action. We have the ASEAN framework on, sorry for saying the word again, anticipatory action and disaster management, and that was backstopped by the Halong Bay ministerial statement that was done in October last year. And that's complemented by, of course, the ADMA work plan and also the end-to-end multi-hazard early warning assessment that just recently came out. With this cocktail, we have a really, I think, strong policy and framework environment for implementation. And we have seen implementation of anticipatory action across ASEAN accelerate over the past few years. However, there are some teething issues that I want people to be aware of as well when it comes to this approach. It is something that is supporting governments. Governments are very keen. We've seen positive evidence that it's a more dignified, it increases the well-being of communities as well, faster, mitigation kind of support, and cost-effective. We've learned for every $1 invested in anticipatory action can have a return of up to $7 in avoided losses and added benefits. However, what we need to collectively come together as agencies is a 2024 mapping that will be coming out soon from the Asia Pacific Technical Working Group. There's 134 anticipatory action systems and triggers that are in place across the region. That's a huge amount, huge. And the one thing that governments keep on saying back, Ministry of Agriculture, the Met Services, the NDMOs, they come back and say, why so much and why is it not led by us? Secondly, is a lot of the actions that are being implemented to date are done that are maybe outside the replicability or scalability of a government. So how can we further support governments to take on anticipatory action through mechanisms that they feel comfortable with and that they can replicate and scale? And a recent example of this is actually in the Philippines, where we had an alert of drought in Isabela province earlier in the year. And the team worked with the Department of Social Welfare in particular, went to Isabela province and used the social protection system and used that for quick targeting and releasing cash distribution, multi-cash distribution, yeah, that's the word, and implemented that ahead of the impact of the drought. And it shows that we can use such systems like social protection that are owned by the government, that are made for targeting the poor and near poor, but also filtering support through those mechanisms to ensure that we allow timely assistance based on warnings. Now, of course, we still need to build the confidence, I think, of many governments and sectors on those warnings, but it's a positive, I think, leap forward nonetheless. And we've seen similar work also in Vietnam and Laos as we've proceeded as well. I'll stop there.
So much, Catherine, not only for bringing in this user perspective from the agricultural sector, but I think also the humanitarian sector. So anticipatory action came really from that community. And also, we heard a little bit during the group discussion, but also the previous days, is early warning for all about weather timescale, or is it also climate timescale? So linking to long-term, short-term actions, and not only adaptation but also mitigation, they can be done together. And I will definitely come back to your mention about the ASEAN framework and as we go to the next round of questions. But before that, I just want to go to RHYMES, which is an organization that we work with a lot through our cruise projects, but also UK Met Office and others, World Bank, work a lot with RHYMES to implement a project. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the role of RHYMES in supporting ASEAN member states in strengthening their multi-hazard early warning systems, and maybe share briefly some success stories and areas that you think could be improved. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you may have already known that RHYMES, our mandate is to capacitate the national hydromet service providers to deliver risk-informed early warning information down to the last mile, and also the stakeholder agencies of the national hydromet service providers to deliver climate services, and to make sure that this results in good decision making. So in recent years, our focus is also to some extent in developing decision support system to facilitate informed decision making in different sectors, and also this decision makings to yield some benefits in the grassroots level. And from our perspective, what I would say, what works well is the partnerships in terms of collaborating in across all the 4 pillars of early warning system, the way we have envisioned the early warning for all initiative. But one area where I see there's still some more we need to do is to make sure there is proportionate support to the different pillars of the early warning system. So we have come across initiatives where the focus is more on one of the pillars, which sometimes makes it difficult, because we know an early warning system is as strong as its weakest link. So if one of the pillars fail, basically the whole system might fail. And we understand that it's not possible to support all the pillars in all the initiatives, but we have to make sure at least the particular pillar we're working on is compatible, the development is compatible with the other pillars. In the ASEAN region, we have come across in cases where there is a very good dissemination mechanism in place, but the forecast is not that developed yet, and it's mainly based on observation, and so it limits the capacity of the users to respond. So I think it's important to make sure the development we make in one pillar is compatible with the other pillars. For example, risk knowledge. There have been so much of work. As of 2023, I think we did one study with Asian Development Bank where we have found that 40% of the early warning system related project financed by GCF focus more on the risk knowledge, and there was disproportionate financing for the other pillars. So and yet I think risk knowledge is not that much integrated into the early warning system because of the compatibility issues. And we have, as a regional organization, we have some good examples from South Asian region that can be replicated in ASEAN region. Yesterday, Mr. David from UK Met Office was mentioning about the South Asia Hydromet Forum. So under the South Asia Hydromet Forum, there have been 2 very good examples. One is the development of data exchange platform, which is a platform where RHYMES member countries exchange the forecast and observation data within the countries, and that actually contributes to the enhancing of the regional or transboundary early warning system. And the second one is the forecaster forum. That is very interesting. The forecasters of the 9 member countries of SAF are meeting every Thursday online for an hour to discuss the forecast of the coming weeks, discuss the significant weather events, and they also met for some of the cyclonic events also. And they also share some of the techniques they are using on also, it's a platform for sharing knowledge among the operational forecaster. So this actually to some extent overcomes the barrier of the bureaucratic and other processes that hinders the transboundary cooperation. So I think similar initiative can be replicated in the ASEAN region.
So much. These are great suggestions, and I think they address what we just heard about data exchange, and maybe also taking inspiration from the regional climate outlook fora, where climate modelers or come together, and maybe something similar could be done for the shorter time scale. And I think we have a lot of ingredients actually for a successful regional approach to early warnings for all. So, but how do we do it? So maybe I can turn to the second round of questions, and again to Delma. Maybe if you could tell us your ideas, what is your expectation from ASEAN or from the ASEAN Secretariat and its different centers and mechanisms? How do you think they could help the Philippines? But then on the other hand, how do you think the Philippines, through its involvement in the WMO, for example, could help the other countries in the ASEAN region?
For the ASEAN, the mechanism that we have, we can use like sharing expertise across different countries. And for Pagasa, since we are a WMO regional training center, we can host trainings that needs for enhancing our capacities in implementing early warning systems. Currently, we're hosting flash flood guidance training with WMO, so we can still continue that and strengthen with more countries participating, especially the Asian member countries, like radar and other applications as well. And also for the RCC, since the Philippines is also a part doing a node for the RCC, so hopefully the member countries in the Southeast Asia are using that platform, and we could encourage how could we increase the utilization of that platform, and what are the needs of the Asian member countries, so that we could enhance. There are several applications that the other countries need, so perhaps those can be enhanced, so cater to the needs of the Asian countries. And for the Philippines, since we are implementing the first GCF IBF, we are having, I would say, the birth pains of implementing. When doing the proposal, we propose it for only 1 year to GCF, one of the fastest. But while implementing, we are already looking at the 4 pillars of early warning for all. First is trying to do the science, then coordination in terms of the impacts to the different sectors, so that the risk assessment, and of course, wherein the anticipatory, the response will also come in, and also early action protocols, and also your critical preparedness actions. So we already have, but then at transitioning that from the current deterministic to a probabilistic is also a learning curve for us as well. So these learnings can also be shared with the other member countries in the ASEAN, wherein we could have some, like we have this WISER that the UK Met Office has said yesterday. So this platform can be used for us to share our best practices, or what lessons learned, and what can be replicated, and of course, as well as enabling policies. Each country can be different, but what are the enabling policies that is existing that we can implement the early warning for all, because this is a whole governance approach from detection down to the response. So very critical is what you call earlier in some groups is what is the lead agency in the national, what's the role, and as well as what is the role of the regional and WMO. So it's like from global to region and to the national. So it could be a top-down as well as a bottom-up approach in which we can learn how to accelerate our adoption of early warning for all, because 2027 is very near. Our project is also 5 years, but I find it's very fast. It's so short. So, and we are looking at 4 hazards. So from this learning process is like sharing of expertise in the region for translating it from the primary hazards to the secondary hazards. I see from flooding, storm surge, landslides. So I hope this will be translated into action among our countries, because I think there is a very need of collaboration among Asian, not only Asian countries, but as transboundary. Yeah. So I hope we can. That's what we can share from the Philippine process.
Very much. Thank you very much. And yeah, also for highlighting the role that WMO can play, which is maybe more focused on the Met services. But then I understand ASEAN can play a role in providing guidance on enabling policies, on sharing experiences with resource mobilization, with project implementation, and also with the secondary hazards that may go beyond the Met service. So this is great. Thank you so much. Maybe I can turn again to Dr. Kanbua. And similar question: what are your expectations from ASEAN when you think of how could these different mechanisms help Thailand to achieve early warnings for all?
For Thailand, I think first we relying ourselves first. After that, I'm looking for help, like a technology transfer. Normally, the WMO give me a lot because we are member, have many training, and we earn like me. Before I like a trainer, should be trainee from the WMO. Give me many train, like a web model in the past. We are like a JCOM, the WMO. At that time, I really lucky because I learned in Norway. And the people in Norway like a promotes to be important guy in the WMO and invite me to be like resource person. That's why we stick with them and try to help everyone in the world about the ocean wave. I think the training is very important, knowledge very important. And now I think if you encourage us to do early warning for all, you have to spend about the know-how to us. Like Thailand, we have the supercomputer, we have the model, we lack of the data. Because the data just a field. You know, if you need the accuracy in the model, that model should have the more data, like a dense weather station, especially automatic weather station. You know, the BMO let us like a observation every 3 hours. But now you have to improve to be 1 hour. Human cannot be that like that. That's why we have to spend a lot of money to measure weather every hour. That means we spend a lot of money. Every member of the BMO have to install automatic weather station. In the past, very expensive. Right now, the price reduced. I mean, is the cheaper because China supports about this one. That's why the stuff is very cheaper than in the past. when we have the data, put the model is very good, but still lack of not accurate, more accuracy. We have to use the data assimilation. The BMO help us again, training, and make us move to we can predict like a downscale to be, because someone in my group would like to have the data in her farm. That means the scale about 1 kilometer. Right now, impossible, because if you have the raw data, the model cannot do for you like that. But now I like very much, because the BMO try to promote and encourage us to use the AI. But any country can do, but some country cannot, because we still have a gap, because the data, we still have just a few stations, and right now we observe every 3 hours, but not enough to be like a early warning for all. Because early warning for all, the accuracy of the weather should be like a impact-based forecasting, like a England, like a Met of UK Met do it, and give the example to the DBMO. DBMO distribute to every member state to follow. We follow, but accuracy in like a middle latitude, the model is very sharp, very accurate. But in our country, we have our country in the tropical area, we call the valotropic. In your country, valoclinic. But different the behavior of the weather. That's why the like a tropical area have to spend a lot of money to install the data about the automatic weather station. Should be denser than in the past. You should be close with the early warning. That means I think sometimes we have to think about the budget for do about the model, and that model should be served for everyone. And if we have any technique like AI, maybe help us, because right now in Thailand we procure AI model to install in my office, but almost done, because we still find out the company to a competition. Almost done. And when I run AI, that model, the accuracy is very, very good compared with the old model. Like a numerical model, we have to use the initial data, the initial data from the observation. And I think Thailand needs just very kind from the BMO, just only that. But for the fund, we try to do by laying out still. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So what I heard was it's important to pool computing power, and to collaborate not only in terms of financial aid, but also in terms of research and these kind of exchanges. It doesn't always have to be financial. So thank you so much. So we started a little bit late, but I hope we can go a little bit over time. I'm just checking with the organizers. I think that should be possible, because the discussions are so interesting, and we want to take back as much as possible. So maybe if I can just turn over to AHA Center again. I have 1 minute. There's no flexibility, because I would really like to hear the final thoughts of the last 3 speakers. Maybe you can be very brief of what you see going forward. What would it take for the different ASEAN committees, for you at AHA Center, but then also for Catherine and Raihanul? How do you see this collaboration unfolding to achieve early warnings for all? So for ASEAN, do you think a new group or a framework or a document would help with that? Maybe you can share some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we are not only talking about the document or framework, but how we implement this document and framework to be an actual action. Just want to tell you maybe a brief story Maybe if you remember during 2021, there is a tropical cyclone Seroja affecting Indonesia and Timor-Leste, and I believe it's only reached a severe tropical storm level, which the impact is actually quite severe impact, hundreds of casualties. We also have our colleague from Civil Protection of Timor-Leste here. And if we see in the Philippines, a lot of tropical cyclone, even though it's already a super typhoon level, and they can have some action how to minimize the casualties. I think I do agree with Madam Thelma about the sharing of expertise, because Indonesia and Timor-Leste maybe have rarely events for the tropical cyclone, but once it hit, for example, like the 2021 cases, it caused a severe impact. So the sharing itself, because I think the sharing of expertise also one of the thing inside the framework. So yeah, I do agree if it's not only for the framework also, but also how to implement. Thank you.
Thank you. And Catherine, very briefly, some last ideas how to scale this up?
Yeah, no worries. I think that we're on an interesting kind of pathway with ASEAN at the moment. We do have, of course, the ADMA work plan where early warnings and strengthening of those systems is very clearly put in place in Output 1. So we do already have the strong kind of foundations there with the ASEAN framework on anticipatory action as well. So we're not starting anew. I think we can really see this grow and it's already got a home, I think, within the ASEAN network and is very much a priority very clearly for ASEAN. What I think will be super interesting is how can we accelerate some of those efforts and work alongside the assessments that have already currently been done and highlighted key recommendations that can be connected to this early warning for all initiative to put the Met services, but as we also discussed today, the ministries from the sectorial agencies, the NDMOs, into the driver's seat, and where can the agencies sit in the engine room. I think that's something that might need to be articulated through maybe some form of framework moving forward that could be, I think, helpful not only to showcase how it would meet the current goals that ASEAN and I know all the member states have to report against, so we don't want to create more bureaucracy, but we want to showcase how we can gather and rally together to meet those needs. But also importantly is the ADMA work program is also up for revision into 2026-2030. So how can we also influence the early warning for all in there? I think will be an important question for us all to take forward as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much for highlighting this opportunity at the moment there is to integrate early warnings for all into the different processes in ASEAN. And as ASEAN Secretariat said on the first day, we are already working together, and we as the UN, we also stand ready to support them. Just over to RHYMES. So ASEAN is not the only regional organization that helps member states. Do you have any final thoughts on how regional organizations such as RHYMES and others can, together with ASEAN, help the countries to implement early warnings for all?
Yeah, I think we should look at it from a more programmatic approach, and the roadmaps currently we are developing, we shouldn't limit it to 2027. We should look beyond that. We should set some specific milestone till 2027, and this programmatic work should continue. And there are many tools and systems that has been developed by technical organizations like RHYMES, considering the common demands. So those solutions can be easily scaled up in the region. And also, I think from in a general perspective, we need to enhance our capability to understand better the patterns and drivers for extreme events, which are becoming more and more frequent, so that we are not caught completely off guard by black swan events. And if you have noticed, we saw some forecasts from the World Economic Forum that in 2 years, extreme events will be number 2. If you have noticed, what was number 1? Number 1 was misinformation and disinformation. Working with the last mile communities and different actors in the region, I would also suggest keep it in mind that this will also become very important. And my last word is consider the so-called last mile as a first mile also, to start the co-production process with the last mile actors so that we can ultimately benefit them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And maybe better than me summarizing all these great comments, I want to emphasize this last point, making the last mile the first mile, and have early warnings for all, but also with all and by all. And maybe I leave it there. I know we are short of time. So I would like to thank all of you, and please give a round of applause to the panelists.